I'm Dr. Kimberly Manning.
And this is Dr. Ashley McMullen. And you're listening to the Human Doctor Podcast, where we explore the human side of medicine, along with teaching, living, learning, and all things in between. Using the power of storytelling, conversation, and connectedness.
Hey, we're two dope academic internal medicine doctors, but we ain't your doctors. So if you perceive anything we say here as medical advice, no, it ain't that. Also, the things we say, they only reflect our brilliant Black woman magic mind and not our employers.
You could have been anywhere, y'all, but you chose to be here with us, and we appreciate you. Let's go. It's good to see you.
You know what? It is good to be seen
Mm-hmm.
and not viewed.
Amen.
Girl,
Amen.
Mahalia looks really cute. She's snatched up on top of your head in a little poof situation. Looks like a remnants of a twist out.
Yeah, Mahalia and I really tried to give it a go in terms of just wearing it out for the twist out, but she wasn't having it with all of my exercise needs, and it's still a little warm outside. So with all my sweatiness, she was just like, nah, we're gonna turn this back into a puff. So
Do you sweat in your scalp?
yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's actually one of my fun Black girl facts about me. I do not, first of all, I don't sweat much at all, regardless of what I'm doing. Unless I'm in a very, very hot room, like hot yoga or something like that, where the room is hot. But
Yeah.
I'm not much of a sweater. And for that reason, I do not sweat in my scalp at all.
Wow.
The Black women who are listening to this are like, because nothing interrupts what you're trying to do with your hair if it's curly than sweat and moisture.
I'm telling you.
I remember when I was moving from California to go to school at Tuskegee and out on the West Coast, because it's not very humid out there, a lot of people there, didn't use, chemical relaxers on their hair. They straightened their hair with a hot comb or flat irons. I came to college and I remember girls in my dorm standing around me, curiously staring as I pressed my hair. They're like, why are you doing that? You're going to step outside and it's going to be a big puff. And I'm like, no, it's not. It also doesn't hold a whole bunch of moisture in it. It doesn't, if I step out into spaces that are humid, it takes a lot for my hair to puff up.
Wow. That is fascinating.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it has to be, if I've just washed my hair, and it's high porosity at that time, then yes, it will take on moisture. But after a couple days, like it is right now, where it's all flat and oily or whatever, I could probably, short of walking in rain, I could probably, do a workout, go for a run, and it's gonna look the same.
Man.
That's a little mercy. I will take it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here for it. Even though, me and Mahalia will have some fights when it comes to moisture, I am really just always in awe of the range and the spectrum of all things Black women hair.
It is. So what else is new with you?
Yeah, well, I have to continue to give you credit. I was very much religiously pro book, non-audiobook. And really, it wasn't until I listened to The Covenant of Water as an audiobook that I realized, wow, this is a whole different experience. So this weekend, I decided to go back and listen to Beloved by Toni Morrison on audiobook. It's been a minute since I read that book several years ago, but listening to it in her voice.
Yeah, she narrates her own books.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a divine experience. So that's been a treat. This was a big self-care weekend, and that was a part of it. Also, shout out to anybody who was watching or has been watching the World Championships for track and field. Sha'Carri Richardson just pulled off the 100-meter final. That was really dope to watch. She came and pulled it off right in the end.
Yep. I like seeing people win when, the world has kind of turned their back on them. So
yeah.
She is sorry, not sorry.
Exactly.
You're going to get these wigs, you're going to get these nails.
Yes.
And you're going to get this speed.
Yeah. You cannot help but respect what she has done and how she chooses to do it.
Yep, I ain't mad at her at all.
Yeah.
My life has been very full in the last few weeks. Last week, we delivered our eldest child. We had college move in. And
Wow. That's right. It's back to school
yeah,
time.
it's back to school time. And you know what's really, really dope about historically Black colleges and super affirming that I probably didn't even appreciate when I was a college student is walking around the campus and seeing the names on the dorms,
Mhm.
like Frederick Douglass Hall, which is where I lived as a freshman. The male dorms are Benjamin Banneker and Mary McLeod Bethune.
Mm.
And so moving my son into a dorm with a name on the front of it that, speaks to Black excellence and our contribution to helping build America, and knowing that he's going to be walking in there every day, in and
Mhm.
out, is really exciting. So he had his first day of classes today and FaceTimed me while trying to figure out where he was supposed to be, but
Mm.
really good spirits. Tuskegee is not that far from Atlanta. So yesterday, actually, I was able to do a turn and burn to go to their rite of passage ceremony for new students joining the Tuskegee family. So they took an oath, and it was really cool listening to, because that wasn't something they did back in the 80s. Hello, Tuskegee. Why y'all didn't do that for us? But anyway, um, but they were just talking about their commitment to improving communities, to remembering the contributions of our ancestors, being inclusive and being leaders, and all of these things that are so affirming to hear right when you're coming out the gate as a student. So it
Yeah.
was it was just every last one of them feels. I had them. I did not cry,
That
believe
was
it or
going to be
not.
my next question. I was like, girl, how'd you make it out of there?
I did not cry. I didn't cry when I took him,
Hmm.
and I didn't cry yesterday. I'm just very, very, very excited for him. I acutely miss my son though. He's a morning person like me, and we usually are up talking in the morning and stuff like that. But I'm so excited for him.
Mm.
I'm not a mom who, mourns stages. Like, when my kid started kindergarten, I was happy for him. When he started middle school, I was excited. When high school came along, I was like, ooh, I think I've been very present and have enjoyed every stage. And I'm just more than anything, I have that little tinge of angst because my son is now over eight, he's 18 and he's a Black man, and this is the United States.
Hmm.
So, if you listen to this and you one of them people who be praying, go on and slide one in for the Manning family.
You know I will.
Thank you, I appreciate it. A little hedge of protection
Yes.
on the children. Yeah. While there are exciting things happening in our world, such as National Latina Day, shout out to all the Latinas who listen,
Mm.
and people taking their kids to be fifth generation scholars at the Pride of the Swift Growing South, also known as Tuskegee. These are things that are happening in our world right now. But you know what's happening in your world right now? You are getting ready to have your ears treated to the extraordinary, the matchless, the brilliant, the beautiful, the brown, Ashley McMullen on the microphone. Give it up, bring her out. Come on, bring her out. I want to hear y'all
God.
scream. Yeah, okay, that's all I got. Did that give you enough time to figure out what you're gonna say?
Yeah, no, I was actually what I was thinking in the moment. I was like, I should send that introduction to my mom. I want her to hear that, but she don't have to listen to the rest. But I wanted to hear that
That is
introduction.
right.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, I know last week you told us that you read What is the What?
Hmm.
But today, since you're telling us a story, do tell us, sis, what is the what?
The what is timing.
Ooh,
Hmm.
I like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I came up with that when I was in the shower 30 minutes ago.
Okay. But you did work out first, so there's that.
Exactly. Thank you. Believe it or not, there are only 2 episodes left in this season. So, as y'all know, we do, 15 episodes a season and then take a little diastolito.
This is gonna be a diastolone.
Diastolone. Okay, yes.
Wait, and shout out to Daniel Barboda, who was my senior resident, who gave me the diastolone. I was like, this is a diastolito part of a off day. He's
Mm,
like, but a whole period of rest is diastolone. So,
mm. Okay.
so,
Yes.
but we digress.
Yes. So I was kind of toying with a couple different stories, and I kind of landed on this one per usual at the last minute and have never said it out loud. So we'll see where it goes. But I figured, since it is my last story of the season, why not end it with another anecdote from the archives of Ashley and Grandma? So this story takes place in summer of 2019. I had just finished my chief year of residency. So I did my 3 years of residency, then tacked on a victory lap, which is my chief resident year, and had taken a job with the VA in primary care. So I had a couple months in between finishing chief year and starting my new job, or it was going to be like probably one of the few times in my adult life where I had like zero responsibilities other than, paying bills. So I did a little bit of travel, and part of that travel included just seeing various relatives in other parts of the country. And I called it my apology tour, which was basically like, sorry, I've been under a rock for the last like 3 to 4 years, and, just coming back to say hi. And so I had spent some time on the East Coast, seen some aunts, uncles, cousins. And part of my intent actually with some of these visits to family was to come out, essentially. I was someone who really came to grips and accepting of my sexuality as a queer, lesbian, Black woman, kind of late at the end of medical school. And so in residency, I wasn't kind of fully out or fully comfortable with just being outward with my identity. And it wasn't till kind of towards the end of residency and chief year where I was just like, okay, like this is who I am. I need folks to know. And so while my immediate family knew, I hadn't really had that conversation explicitly with some of my other relatives. I have to say, many of those conversations were like infuriatingly anticlimactic, because most people were just like, yeah, we knew, we figured.
How y'all didn't tell me?
I know, right? You could have let me know. But at the same time, I recognize the privilege that goes along with being able to have conversations with family about this and it not turn into a rift or a breaking point. So Chicago was kind of last on this apology tour. And and it wasn't like I hadn't seen folks, particularly my grandparents. I hadn't really spent a lot of quality time with individuals outside of being kind of in and out for the holidays. And so I had come to Chicago, and, this was when my grandparents were still living in. I remember kind of hyping myself up. I was just like, well, this has been really easy with my other folks, so I just need to tell my grandparents. And and I'm sure it'll be fine. So I remember, and usually where I kind of post up is in the back room of the house. So I would just kind of lay on the couch and chill. And, at some point I could count on Grandpa wandering back there. Then eventually he would launch into a story of which I would be a captive audience for a while. So I remember sitting there and he's like kind of going into a story about something or other. And I was just kind of looking for like a breaking point in the conversation. And at some point there was like kind of a moment where I could slide in there and
Oh my God, wait. So in between him coming up for a breath?
yeah, exactly.
So,
It's just, there was some kind of like segue.
back in 1960. Hey, I'm queer.
I know, right? I do remember timing this though, because there was some point in the story where something around like homosexuality came up. And I was just like, hey, by the way, there's something I've been meaning to share with you, Grandpa. Like, I'm actually gay. I'm attracted to women. And he was just like, huh, so-and-so is also gay. And then he launches into another story, like barely even, it was kind of like a blip on the radar. So I was like, okay, cool. And at some point, he's going on, and then I wait for another kind of break in the cycle. And I was just like, Grandpa, I was actually thinking about telling Grandma too while I'm here. And he, for the first time, stopped, looked at me, and was just like, you're gonna tell who? I'm gonna tell Grandma. And he starts shaking his head, and he was just like, no, don't do that.
So for a minute there, it seemed like he hadn't even caught what you said, but he did
Yeah,
catch what you said. He was
exactly.
fine, but he was sending out a warning shot, like,
Yeah.
nah, this ain't what you want. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I was actually a little taken aback for that same reason. And, it just kind of, didn't register too much with him. He seemed fine with it, but he was very clear. He was just like, I don't think that's a good idea in terms of sharing it with my grandmother. So I guess just to pause a little bit, I obviously have told a lot of stories about my grandmother and the beauty of our relationship and how much her love and care meant and has meant to me, even after she passed away in 2020. And I think that it's also important to include the fact that she was complicated, like all human beings. There are a lot of parts within each of us. And I think for my grandmother, there were a lot of parts that held on to a lot of trauma, a lot of grief, particularly for Black people of that generation. There was a lot of complex history there and a lot of intergenerational trauma. My grandmother considered herself a fundamentalist Christian. She was someone who adhered to the Church of God in Christ, which is a very strict religious ideology, but also a very deeply spiritual and transcendent one. And growing up with her, I knew this. I knew my grandmother was very religious, but it was never in a way that seemed like strict or abusive. It just was who she was. And, I was so enamored by her love and her strength and all the things that I never questioned her ideology until I started kind of grappling with my own sexual identity.
Mm.
But at that time, when I was kind of gearing up to have this conversation, I was really of the mindset of, well, she loves me. So once she hears that I'm gay, it'll definitely change her mind. She'll see differently. So I found a space where it was just the two of us. We were talking, and I decided to, instead of just tossing it out there, I would kind of go around and kind of probe her mindset first. And so as we were talking, I just kind of veered the conversation over to gay marriage, sharing with her, just Grandma, this is what I think. This is what I've come to believe about, gay marriage and, rights around this. And we've never had this conversation before or even broached this subject. I can see her facial expressions. It was very clear, it didn't compute for her. She couldn't even fathom the idea that two people of the same sex could actually love each other, and let alone that it would be okay to have a marriage. And as she's saying this, and I'm seeing her expressions and hearing some of the things that were pretty hurtful, it was interesting to experience what was happening for me at that moment.
Mm.
I was starting to see her differently, starting to see her in a way that I had never seen her before.
Mm.
And what I felt was not, even though her words were, disappointing, I actually didn't feel hurt or sad at that time. What I felt was, I felt sorry for her. I started to feel just this deep compassion. I was seeing for the first time, this is not just about her accepting my identity. I could see that her holding on to some of these biblical principles that, it's the word of God, it can't change, was actually a matter of her kind of holding on to control.
Mm.
It was a way of her having something to kind of anchor to make sense of, the rest of her life that largely seemed out of her control.
Mm.
I don't know if that makes sense to you,
Mhm.
Kimberly.
I'm following you.
But I guess it was the first time I was seeing chinks in the armor.
Mm.
I was seeing the human being and the hurt human being underneath my fearless and spiritual and lovely and joyful grandmother. I could see someone who was deeply hurt and traumatized and frustrated by the things she couldn't do. And I could tell that trying to shift her ideology, at least at that moment, around the things that she understood about Christianity, it was asking her to kind of do a deeper work within herself. And I didn't think that it was the right time to do that.
Mm. Mm.
I don't know, exactly what it was, but there was like this very heavy discernment of just like, this isn't just about me. I don't need this from her right now.
Mm,
And it wasn't, I need you to accept this in order to feel seen or loved by you. I had that from her. I wanted her to know the things that I was sharing with everybody else, but it really just did not feel like the right time. So I left it where it was, and I was okay with that. In fact, I actually left that interaction just loving her more because
mm,
I could see so much more behind the armor that she put on for me for most of my life.
mm,
When I got back to California after that, I remember kind of sitting and reflecting on that. And, there were waves of hurt and also anger, to be honest, just anger over the fact of just like, why is this shit so hard?
yeah, yeah.
Why do I have to do these emotional gymnastics just to exist in the way that feels right? But ultimately, I made peace with it, like a
Mm,
real peace. And the next time my grandmother and I really, had another chance to be in each other's presence and kind of sit down and talk to each other was in Houston before she had the stroke.
mm,
But in that conversation, it was mostly me listening. And it was actually one of the first times she opened up to me about some of the things that she went through in childhood.
mm,
And again, just opening a different level of awareness and seeing
mm,
her in the fullness of her humanity. I never had the conversation with my grandmother explicitly
mm,
about my sexual identity. And to be honest, if I'm being like brutally honest, I'm so glad that we didn't before she died. Because at that point, it wouldn't have been the right time. It
mhm,
wouldn't have left us in a good place.
mm,
And I love the fact that we got to at least spend the remaining year of her physical presence, just enjoying the love and care as we'd always known it. And there's a part of me that I'm pretty sure she knew, even though we didn't explicitly talk about it.
mhm,
Obviously, it didn't change how she felt or behaved towards me, but I don't think she was ready to have that explicit conversation at that time. But
mm,
now, when I talk to my grandmother in prayer and quiet spaces, when I hear her voice in my soul, there's no barrier between us.
mm.
And, I can talk to her with more ease and authenticity and openness than what may have been possible had she still been here right now.
Mm.
You know, and who's to say what would have happened, if she had had a few more years on this earth. But I feel like there would have been some tension between us,
Mm.
because again, it doesn't change how I love and feel about her, but for my own way of being and seeing the world, I disagree with a lot of her approach to her thoughts around religion.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I can understand why she she held steadfastly to those beliefs.
Yeah. Well, where your life was too at that
Mhm.
point, it also afforded you a space to be able to make that decision, right?
Mhm.
Because if before your grandmother transitioned, you'd had a very serious partner that you were wanting to spend your life with, and it would
Yeah.
you it was just like you're just gonna have to get this news.
Mhm.
Also, sidebar, as a person who has been married almost 20 years, Granddaddy told her that on some pillow talk.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Granddaddy done found his little way to drop that in there. So she
Yeah.
probably did know. But
Mhm.
here's what I'm thinking about this. Number one, what an incredibly loving way to frame this experience and a way to receive and see your grandmother. The ally in me immediately just wants to be like, oh, if you don't like me for who I am, then
Mhm.
But people are complicated, as you said,
Yeah.
and love is very complicated. My friend David Malebranche, who is an amazing medical doctor and a same gender loving brother, he often talks about this idea of not so much coming out but letting people in, right?
Mhm.
But the more I hear about any form of letting somebody into something that is private and that is mine and that is for me to tell you. The truth is that you have to be somebody that is ready for me to let you in.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's many ways we let people in, right? It might be something as simple as I'm pregnant, which I'm not, y'all, because I'm 52. But it might be that, right? But
Yeah.
maybe somebody is in a space in their life where they are in pain or they're angry or they're going through something and they can't be let into that part of your world right now. Or maybe it's something very, very significant, like who you are, fundamentally who you are. And for me to open the door to let you into that very sacred space of who I am, if you ain't ready to walk through that door and I'm going to let you into my sacred space and then we're fighting in there, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And there are people that we love very, very much who can't be in on certain things. They just can't. They just can't be in on it. And it might not be a never. It might be a not now.
Exactly.
Or it might be a not like conventionally people think. Because whenever we tell people things or let people into intimate spaces in our world, we create a narrative of how we imagine that they'll respond. So in addition to them being ready to step in, we have to be ready to deal with whatever comes, right?
Yeah.
Because we create a narrative, but it is almost never what we thought it was going to be. Almost never. And I think another beautiful thing to point out, because I'm certain that there's somebody who's listening to this who is probably, shaking their head hard and being like, no, that's not fair to Ashley. And, no, this is who you are is who you are. But we have to understand that people are products of what they came up with.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So if you grew up like my maternal grandmother, who went to Tuskegee and majored in home economics. That was her major, home ec. And her proud claim to fame, one of the things she always told me that she learned when she was getting her degree, is that a way to make sure your home smells like a home cooked meal when your husband comes home is to take a frying pan and saute some onions in the frying pan to make your whole house smell welcoming and like a meal is ready, even if you're serving leftovers. And she like, but I would look at her while she was saying that and be like, no, that sounds really crazy. Like, I'm tired too. I was like, I'm a whole doctor. I'm not trying to make you. Now I do sometimes do that. But shout out to grandma. But the point is really that when she in 1942 or 43 or whenever she started at Tuskegee, when she got there, you could be a nurse, you could be a teacher, or you could do home ec. She didn't want to be a nurse. She didn't want to be an educator. So like she said, like probably more than 50% of the women there were doing home ec. That was the world that she was in, right? And that might sound crazy to somebody else now, right? To go and pay and get a degree to do home economics. But guess what? That was where her world was. So if your world was a paternalistic world where the law, and even the law that held you down and kept you segregated, was rooted in biblical teachings, that's what you know. Fire and brimstone, that's what you know.
Yeah.
So I can't allow myself to put a whole bunch of energy and give a lot of oxygen to being angry at somebody who is a product of the time that they came up in. Because even the time I came up in is so starkly different than these medical students that I am teaching right now. Even that, I feel like very old lady sometimes, or I'm like, what? What'd you say? So yeah. And can I just add one other thing, that if you are a Black American and you are over the age of probably 65, just by definition of that, you have had trauma. Every single Black American person over the age of 65, and probably under that too, but definitely those who lived through segregation, we should approach them with a trauma-informed care lens, which is what you did for your grandmother. It was trauma-informed, empathic, and dope. And it teaches us something. It gave us all some pause, Ash. It made us think like, hey, wait a minute. Before we get on the hind legs, let's take a moment and be like, yo, wait a minute. What all is going on here?
Yes, absolutely. And obviously there's so much to that story and so much context that I've tried to articulate and also left out. But I guess, yeah, that's exactly the point I want to convey. It's just like relationships can be complicated, even the most endearing and the most loving relationships. For this particular individual who was my grandmother, I saw something so much bigger than, just this black and white, like understanding of what's right and wrong. Like there was something more there that I could see in her that moved me to compassion and understanding, because I loved this person. I love her more than anything. And yeah, and in the end, I can still say that there was nothing I regret about our relationship. Nothing at all. It wasn't the right time. And, I didn't realize that the actual conversation would happen after she passed. But yeah, I'm glad that it went down the way that it did. And so I just want to infuse a little bit of hope for anybody who is maybe can relate to that struggle in terms of if and how to talk about these things.
And not everybody is ready to be let in.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't got to come out of nowhere, and it's for you to decide who gets to come in and what coming in looks like, right?
Yeah.
For some people, letting the world in involves a rainbow t-shirt and a harness and some hot pants and a parade.
Yeah.
For somebody else, it could just involve quietly sitting in a library doing them or whatever that looks like, right?
Yeah.
Which is cool and fine. Yeah. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for hearing my story and affirming me and, all the emotions that come along with re-experiencing that moment.
Yeah. And people do change and people do grow. And sometimes you have to give them the space to do that. And nobody does that for us like younger people who are of a different generation, opening our eyes to see where we may have been missing something or where our views may have been a little bit too narrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So shout out always to your grandmother. Shout out for beautiful, authentic, whole, unapologetic, imperfectly perfect you.
Yeah.
And shout out to anybody who is listening, who is trying to sort out for themselves what it looks like to let people in.
Yes.
Well, sister, I love you dearly and know for sure your grandmother continues to be proud of you. And I'm proud of you too.
Thank you, sis.
Yeah.
I love you too. And I'm proud of me too.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
You know what, boo? I'm proud of me too.
Yeah, I am.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Holla.
That wraps up this week's episode of the Human Doctor Podcast.
Special thanks to our favorite brother gastroenterologist, Dr. Chuma Obiname, for the beats. Shout out to the Dr. Ashley McMullen for editing and production.
Mad love to our podcast family at The Nocturnist and the Clinical Problem Solvers, our Med Twitter fam.
And especially shout out to all of you, our listeners.
Until next week, remember,
we see you and you are enough. Holla!